Meeting will come to order.
Dan Kaiser,
Here.
Brad Edkin,
Here.
Michael Rosman, yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, here. Thank you.
Jay Scott,
Here.
Greg Steffler,
He's absent.
absent. Okay. Gabrielle Human. Here. Yes. Roger Coleman.
Here.
Rick Marshall.
Here.
So, okay.
Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda is public comments. Brett?
No comments and none online, been pre-registered, so. no public comments.
Okay. Next we'll do introductions. Should we start with staff first or?
I'll start. Brett Music, senior engineer. So Sarah Wilson, assistant city engineer, had been the previous liaison of the Traffic Safety Commission, so she has departed the city, moved on. So may have been selected to be in the role here for the liaison, which basically then the engineering provides a secretary for the commission element there. So I'll be continuing in that role. I've been with the city about 6 years. And this is my second time as a liaison to the Traffic Safety Commission. When I first started with the city, that was an assignment I had at that time as well. So things have changed a little bit since then. I will note that behind on the board is a map that was put up at one previous Traffic Safety Commission meeting when we had a discussion about streets and street classification. It has stayed on the board till now. We have an updated map, which you have hard copies that I placed out there, and going to our GIS analyst is working on an online version of that map. So just a bit about myself.
Welcome. Welcome. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Michael Rossman. This is my second year on the commission. And I just want to say thank you, Dan, for accepting the position as our speaker.
I think we still have a vote coming, Michael, so we have a chance to nominate you too, so.
My name is Gabrielle Humley, and this is my first meeting.
Welcome.
My name is Rick Marshall. I'm also new on the commission and actually new to the city of Newburgh. I just moved and new to Oregon. I just moved here from California in September, but I promise to behave.
Welcome, Rick. I'm Dan Kaiser. This is, I guess, starting my second year on the commission along with Michael. My wife and I moved to Newburgh in 2021, so coming up on our third year here in town. We moved from West Salem. I grew up in McMinnville, so I'm somewhat familiar with the Yamhill County area. So looking forward to another year with y'all.
I'm Brett Adkins. This is my second year here as well as Michael and Dan. Lived in Newburgh since 2017. Spent some time in Seattle before that, and then Boise, Idaho before that, where I grew up. But happy to be here serving on this commission.
Welcome, Brett. Come back.
I'm Roger Coleman. This is my first meeting of this time on the commission. I was previously on the commission a few years ago for a couple of years during COVID. Was very difficult time to be involved, and I ended up having to leave because of some other things, but glad to be back and be involved. Moved to Newburgh in 2013 from West Salem, and so I'm here. Retired. Very enjoyed.
All right. Welcome, Roger.
Thank you.
This is also my second year, and I'm Jesse Ked, as I said earlier. We moved back to Newburgh in 2020 ish timeframe and spent several years prior to that living, working overseas, so. But Newburgh is my family's home, so it's the place I spent the most time in the States. Thanks.
Welcome, Jesse.
I'm Counselor Mike McBride. This is starting my second year being on the commission. And I was born and raised here in Newburgh, so I've always lived here.
You got the badge.
Hello, my name is Brian Hagan. I'm one of the patrol sergeants here with the Newburgh Dundee Police. I'm currently assigned as the supervisor of our traffic team, which is the 2 traffic officers. And so as part of that assignment, I'm the liaison for the city for as a resource for you guys to answer any questions and sometimes give some updates and reports on police related matters that apply to the Safety Commission. So I'm currently on duty, so for the newcomers, if I abruptly get up and leave, it's nothing personal. It just means I gotta go do something. So that's it. Preston?
I'm Preston Langlers. I'm the maintenance superintendent. Been here for 3 years. Went to college in George Fox, so I'm very familiar with the area. Live in Wilsonville, met my wife in Newburgh, so I'm happy to come back and serve the community.
I'm Faye Bates. I'm with the planning department. I'm actually here just to make sure that help out and make sure everything runs smoothly as a hybrid.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Fatin. I'm with the engineering department. I'm here to support and run the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McBride and city staff for your support. So next item on the agenda is election of the chair and the vice chair for 2024. Like with that, I guess I'm looking for volunteers. Michael or Jesse, or Brett, you're 2 volunteers. Well, we're looking for a chair and a vice chair, isn't that correct, Brett? So we gotta have 2 of us. So last year in the role of vice chair, I really wasn't doing much. I probably should have paid more attention to what was going on. But that's really the role of the vice chair. So when the chair can't make it for whatever reason, the vice chair can step in, so. Any volunteers? No? Okay. I'll volunteer to be the chair for 2024 and fulfill my succession. Volunteer for vice chair.
Well, if none of the second year people are willing, I would be willing.
Okay.
I was trying to wait, defer to others, but
Okay. Any other volunteers for vice chair? All right.
I would suggest that you have, now that you've had a discussion with some volunteers, maybe there's a motion to recommend for the vice chair and a vice chair, and then a
Okay.
second, and then have a vote following that, just to kind of.
Okay. So can I get a motion
For a
to
nomination, I should say,
or,
as far as a push for a nomination of.
a nomination for Rick as vice chair? Somebody like to make that nomination?
I nominate Rick Marshall as vice chair.
Do I hear a second? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'm saying. Need a motion for you also? I think that's, yes.
I nominate Dan Kaiser for chair.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, excuse me, can we second to that?
I'll second.
Thank you, Roger.
Aye.
Okay, next on the agenda is the consent calendar.
Just a note on the consent calendar, there's the meeting dates that are kind of the quarterly that kind of follow in the traditional pattern as the first month of each quarter, having the second Monday, having those set up. I know there's been some discussion about it. I mean, that's on the agenda for a frequency of things. That discussion would be separate from this. This would be setting what these would be the minimum time period for that. And then the second item is on the commission meeting minutes. There's a couple of the meeting minutes where there had not been a quorum previously. So the idea is that there would be now there is a quorum for that and a motion and a vote on that piece of it. There had been brought to my attention some potential, maybe there's something that's inaccurate or something within the meeting minutes. So if there's anything that's there to kind of to voice or to clean up on some of those elements, let us know and we can make amendments to that.
Okay, members, are there any concerns about the meeting minutes from the prior year?
No
I
concerns. I've read through them.
I had a question on one of them, well, a couple questions. First one is, can we new members vote on the minutes of the meetings before we join the commission?
The city recorder, I talked with her today. She said, yes, that would
Okay.
make sense.
And then there was one thing in the minutes from July. Item 7B talked about nuisance vehicles. And there was a couple statements that said, we wanted to this, that, and the other. And I couldn't tell from this whether it was the police department saying we or the Traffic Safety Commission saying we. I think that would be good to be more clear. If we know it.
So I believe that's item B,
7B.
7B
Yes.
within the minutes from the July 24th meeting. So
And I know this is not the hill to die on. If it's not an easy fix, I don't care that greatly, but I'm hoping it might be an easy fix.
If memory serves, the we there was the Traffic Safety Commission.
Okay.
you could ask for a motion to approve the consent calendar as it stands, ask for the items independently, and then with the potential for an amendment to the amendment of the minutes per the discussion that was just held.
All right, so can I get a motion to approve the consent calendar? Let's do for 7A for the meeting dates for this year.
So
I have a question, and I don't know if that after, if you'd like, I'll make a motion to approve it, but I do have a question. Okay, I'm gonna be absent for the July 8th one. Maybe it might remind all the second year and tell first year, what's the process by which we inform and who do we inform of our pending absence?
So that would be myself, Brett Music, senior engineer. So you can send me an email to that effect
Okay.
if you know that you're going to be absent, and then we'll note that, and that happens.
Okay, so as long as you're comfortable with me being absent, I propose that we accept those meeting dates.
Before we vote on accepting them, you implied that there was a discussion about maybe increasing the frequency of meeting or the.
That would be later in the agenda. At this point, it
Okay.
would be just these dates is all that we're focused
Okay.
on.
Okay, so Michael's made a motion to vote to approve those meeting dates outlined there on the board. Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 I,
And then the second item is the meeting minutes for last year's traffic safety meeting minutes on April 10th, July 24th, and October 23rd.
I'll be happy to move that we approve the minutes with the one correction as noted in our discussion. Or approve all three of them.
Any further discussion?
Only that, perhaps Brett, either now or later, just give everybody a reminder where we are on the abandoned car issue I had asked, and I found it very informative, so.
That'll be coming up
Okay,
within the
very
engineering staff report
So-
there.
Okay.
Second, if that was what you were looking.
So we have
Or
a
you-
second, we have a second to approve the meeting minutes?
Yes,
Okay,
I second that.
okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Nay? Okay. Now we're on to staff reports and general information. First, we have the police report.
Hello again. I don't have anything specific to report on. Usually the first of the year, I'll offer some traffic reporting stats like citations and warnings and different focus stuff that we accumulate stat wise over the course of the year. But our staff or stat reporting systems kind of ate all that data recently, and so they're working on a fix for that. And so hopefully by the next meeting, I'll have something for you. But I don't have anything really else to report. This next month, we're gonna engage in a pedestrian safety operation through the downtown core. If you're all familiar with the numerous crosswalks that go through, that are non-electrified crosswalks, they have no signals. It's so we get complaints from time to time of people having issues trying to cross and nearly getting struck. And so we're gonna pay some focused attention to that. Probably the first week of February. So we'll be out there visible and putting something on our social media account about it. And we'll have some stats from that operation as well for you in the next time. So stay tuned.
Sergeant Hagan, could you remind us what the rules are about unmarked crossings? I mean, are they marked but just not signalized? Or-
Yes, they're basically it defaults to a pedestrian right-of-way issue since there's no electric like signal that shows what you have to do, which would default to the driver having to yield the right-of-way to a pedestrian who has already entered the crosswalk and is making their way across the street. You have to yield not only the lane that you're in, but the next adjacent lane to that person so that they can safely get across.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, on to the
Engineering.
engineering here, so within if those have been on the Traffic Safety Commission in the past, within this engineering log on the agenda is typically where you'd see the active issues log. That's not included this time, and I'm still getting myself up to speed on the various status where various things are with the Traffic Safety Commission. That's one of the updates that I'll have for the next meeting is kind of where things are with that and an updated log and have that in there, so more to discuss on that. The nuisance vehicle, the white paper that was done on that, Sarah Wilson, his former assistant city engineer, had gotten that to the city manager. So it's in his hands at this point in time to move that forward, and they'll make a decision as to what the process and all of that. If it goes forward, there's a process for the code changes that are recommended that to be reviewed by legal and go through a process. So that's forthcoming of more on that piece of it. So I know that Sarah had worked on that quite a bit with this commission, and I thank you for kind of moving that forward and those kind of things. So, so that's where that sits for now. And we'll just wait and see. Did get a notice from our public works director. It forwarded some information that ODOT is working to start a curb ramp project through the city of Newburgh down highways 99W, 219, 240, and 18. So it looks like surveying is going to be the first thing to happen in the next few weeks, and they're targeting construction to occur in 2026. So the information from ODOT forthcoming, I would imagine, on their website and things for that. So we'll try to get some updates and get out to this commission to have that information. Various projects that engineering is working on, or capital improvement program projects. I know they've been talked about in previous meetings. One of them is the common one is the pavement preservation project, where we're doing keeping the pavement preserved and trying to upgrade that piece of it. So the projects for this next year are being looked at and being identified now to be determined for what's going to happen with those. One of the things that's being done with that is we have a House bill, or have some water line replacements related to the House Bill 2001 for increased densities and things to accommodate middle housing, the types of densities associated with that. So some water line projects to be replaced that are in the same area where there's pavement concerns and issues. So we'll be coordinating those projects with that, with the water line replacement projects, and that's an ongoing process we're working on. And there had been the Elliott Road project as that construction is complete. So I know there've been previous updates and things in the past, so that project is completed and open, and usable. So, the North Main and Illinois intersection study, I think that had been mentioned at the last element there. So kind of with the change in staffing of what's happening, and because I was a project manager on that, so we're kind of working and getting alignment of resources and workloads. So we're kind of pausing that project for the next 3 months, possibly a little bit longer as we get that aligned, but we are still, the intent is that we're still recruiting for the Citizens Advisory Committee for that, as well as kind of some other, working with ODOT and others to bring them on board. So there'll be a little bit of background. Things will still continue, but as far as then actively moving that project forward, that's being paused. So thank you for that.
I have a question. Oh,
Go ahead.
at that intersection, there's a sign proposed change of something?
Oh, there's a land use
Yes.
project there. There's a property there that's going through a variance request related to their private driveway in the intersection with the street. They're doing an addition on that that's triggered a look at the vision clearance and sight distance issues there. So there's a variance being processed there on that.
Okay, and do you have any updates on the traffic safety cameras? I read out in the Newburgh Tribune that the 2 cameras are
Yeah,
moving ahead.
Yeah, so the red light running and, yeah, I know there's a presentation at the last meeting, but yeah, that is
Oh,
moving. Yep, there was a presentation at the last meeting. Nope, all good there. Those are moving forward. The vendors working with ODOT to have get those installed. So
So is ODOT the client in this regard? Newburgh just pays for it, but ODOT actually oversees the project?
with it being ODOT, it's ODOT facilities that the cameras are going on to. So I'm not familiar with all the details of that, the nuances of it, but their approval is required for installing those and kind of coordinating how the installation of that pieces.
Okay, so it's not your engineering department that's running that project?
Right now, it's going to be with the vendor working with ODOT to get that installed. We have the other senior engineer, Paul Chu, is going to be working with the vendor as well as through with the city manager to get that move forward and get those installed.
Okay.
I actually had a question about that too. Where are the funds going from that we collect from those red light cameras?
That is something that I am not fully aware of on that piece of it, so. Well,
Thank you.
But Mike,
I think that that's at this point just gonna go into the general fund and then it'll get dispersed wherever, we need it to go. We haven't talked a lot about that at the council level, so that's kind of been a couple of the things that have been brought up, but that's all I know at this point.
Thank you.
anything else, Brett?
Yeah, just a couple other
Okay.
items here, looking at my notes. So I mentioned before about the frequency of meetings that have been a past discussion. So whenever you get to that discussion, just an item is the meeting starts currently, has traditionally started at 7 PM. City Council recently went to where they've gone meeting at 6. There is a potential to adjust the meeting start time if there's a desire on that, just something to consider and you get into the discussions on that if you have so desired. And then let's see, there was also, I wanted to mention that in a new business item that's in the agenda that had been previously had been asked to be on for this agenda is kind of related to the Traffic Safety Commission's involvement with the Transportation System Plan update. And previously, I believe it was understood that update was going to be happening in the next fiscal year. Currently, the city engineer is working on the capital improvement program for the next year, the next 5 years, and it's uncertain where that's going to land. So I just want to make you aware that it's not as imminent as it was first thought to be.
Okay.
And then kind of going into kind of the next piece of things. was leading up into the next item on the agenda for you and their old business was the future task for the Traffic Safety Commission. So Sarah had put together a kind of from your past discussions, a spreadsheet for me with kind of the task you have, and that's the next slide that's on there. And these are drawn from the meeting minutes from the July meeting, I believe is where they're structured in there as well, mostly. But I kind of wanted to kind of, with there being new commissioners on here, is to kind of, and I had the Newburgh Municipal Code has a section related to the Traffic Safety Commission that lays out kind of how the membership is formed and goes into the purposes and duties. So I just kind of wanted to touch base on this piece of this with the purposes and duties. This is the purpose, and it's written in a way different than the form that you see here, but the words are the same, just broken out into the three components of what the purpose of the Traffic Safety Commission are. And my thought was that as you look at and discuss the items that your future tasks and things you would be able to work on, be thinking of how those relate to these kind of these three items within the purposes and duties so that we just make certain we're staying on track and clear where things are intended to be and go. So.
Thank you for sharing that.
So we'll get back to that for discussion or?
Well, my thought was kind of going as you go into, so I guess we're kind of into that next agenda item.
All right, so that completes the engineering report
Yes.
update, Brett?
Yes, we have.
Okay, so on to old business. First item on the agenda is future tasks for the Traffic Safety Commission.
And so this is a point of kind of the intent behind this is for you to have a discussion to kind of, I'm going to ask as the liaison here and kind of be thinking of as, there's a number of tasks here. There's a few of them that overlap and kind of what I view as falling into kind of with the TSP update and what you might be, the Traffic Safety Commission might be involved with that. Those that I view lined that way are number one, to review the bike ped plan and ADA route and consider prioritization. That's an element within the transportation system plan. So a couple of scenarios that can be wait till you're kind of work out how you might be involved with that. You could also independently start to look at things there. The next transportation system or transportation master plan preparation, that's that task right there that I was referring to. That one all falls into there. The traffic calming guidelines, there's a reference to kind of some past documentation and things that have been done. That's something that could be done independently or again, incorporated into the transportation system plan update. And then the other one, the number 11 on the item that's listed up there, the push to integrate traffic calming into the master plan or municipal code for developments. That kind of goes with the traffic calming document that was referenced in previous minutes and been created in the past. Or this one. Those are the ones that I see are all kind of related in potentially that transportation system plan update. So if as you're discussing these things, kind of those are elements I see kind of all wrap up into one grouping there, but could be separated out. But trying to break these down into some manageable components. So if the discussion might lead that there's 2 or 3 of these you want to move forward with, then kind of structuring that for a deeper dive with future meetings. And I will say just a couple of comments before you start getting into your discussions on this that I had as kind of making some notes. The traffic calming guidelines that had been done previously, I know that there's at least 2 versions of them, something that's a quick cursory look into the elements there. It's going to take a little bit of time to do some research and find the status of where those things are at. So if that's something that's desired, staff as the more or less serving as the liaison and the secretary of the commission, we're not we're not directed by the Traffic Safety Commission on our work task. If you want something from staff, I need to talk to the city engineer who may need to talk to the city manager and get confirmation that we can move forward with dedicating the resources for those things. So just kind of keep that in mind as well. The other one that stood out there was Sarah had promoted, that stated here, is about a Traffic Safety Commission awareness poster. I think that's a good idea in that regard. I just want to be kind of the awareness of traffic safety in general, the Oregon Impact through ODOT. And there's a link on our website to the Oregon Impacts website on the Traffic Safety Commission website. There's also emails that I believe, I think you have gotten them in the past, and I'll try to make certain they get forwarded to you in the future. And those talk about education programs and things as well that through the state that they're working on, things that might get incorporated into future coordination with the community engagement staff. And that's the notes that I had to help state things where I had for this. So unless there's questions for me, I'll let that go for your discussion.
Well, I can see with
Yes.
11 items up there, I can see why we're gonna have to talk about meeting frequency, because
Right.
they won't get done with 4 meetings.
Can I ask a question about one of them?
Go ahead.
Is your understanding, Brett, of item 3? Whose responsibility is it ultimately to prepare the master plan? Are we just
Oh,
giving
gotcha.
input into it where we are, or is that a deliverable by this commission?
That would not be a deliverable by this commission. That is a deliverable through the engineering division, typically work with a consultant that gets hired to prepare that transportation system plan. As part of that, there's usually a citizens advisory committee that moves forward, that's involved with that. Members of the Traffic Safety Commission could be on that advisory commission potentially, or we can, that's kind of, have a future item on how you would like to present yourselves into that. And
So
But that's,
I don't know if that make a motion or something, but if I was to make a literal read of item 3, I would suddenly think I'm responsible for managing.
yeah, as
the
it's
deli-
written and as it
written.
was presented there, correct. And that's kind of why these are presented. These are not necessarily, that probably should be a potential future task added on to that. Those are the things
Or
that the notes
you
are presented
make
to me.
contributions
To,
to. Yeah,
correct. And that's
words
kind
like
of,
that.
yeah, exactly. And I will say, going back to kind of to with the purpose component of the Traffic Safety Commission, a big part of what this commission can and should do and has done is kind of with the white paper scenario with the nuisance vehicles, is kind of working on, is there elements within the existing code that or other guidance or the transportation system plan elements there that you'd like to see some changes made to? You can start, do the research and come up with information to be able to go what you would like those to be different than and to be proposed. And what that serves then as a recommendation to council, ultimately for them to consider to see if they move forward with it or not. So there's always a likelihood or a potential. You could present something that you would like to see changed and it doesn't fit within the council priorities necessarily at this given time and may not move forward, at least not at the time that it's presented. It may go at a different time or elements there. So things to be aware of.
So members of the commission, it looks like we might want to have a discussion about maybe prioritization of these 11 elements up here. It's a tall list. And maybe a discussion about what kind of information from the past could help us get up to speed. Because I don't think I've seen some of these past communications that Brett mentioned. That might be something we want to reference. I don't know. Jesse, if you remember seeing some of those or. I don't.
Is this in reference to the kind of the safety emails from Oregon?
I believe the question is
State.
related to what I mentioned about the Oregon impact, which come from
Yeah.
the state there.
Yeah, we used to get those forwarded to us, I
Yeah,
think, in the
so
past.
I will work to get those forwarded to you going forward.
Item number 7 with the complaint log. How long is that list? Do we have
Oh,
a?
I'm assuming that that's a reference to our active issues log, that kind of
Okay.
where basically on the Traffic Safety Commission website, there's a traffic safety concern report form. And so that's where residents can fill that out, give information. Engineering staff will work with, usually it's myself, work with whoever, currently I'm going forward, it'll be myself, most likely to work with, kind of confirm what the issues are and see if it falls into what's considered either a limited decision, which is handled by the city engineer, or a general decision, which is a Traffic Safety Commission, be a hearing related to that. So there's a lot of concerns of a lot of different things that get into that log. Some of them, whenever you'll see the update of this, and that's kind of one of the things that I'm pulling together information to make certain that I've got the most accurate information to present that. Some of them have been ongoing for some time, and what happens a lot of times is there's information that only so far the residents, so much information the resident can provide or provides initially. And sometimes it's back and forth trying to gather more information, and sometimes those discussions and things kind of fall off with time. So there's some things that what I indicate as ongoing, and it's basically waiting for other information to come in. And sometimes there's the same issue comes up multiple times, and we try to follow that. And I have a feeling that's probably what this is from, is kind of trying to resolve those issues and see if there's either solutions or some way to resolve what the item is. And in some cases, there are concerns raised where there isn't an engineering solution, and maybe it's an education or an enforcement solution or a task on things, and that's where we'll work with PD on the enforcement component. And then the education piece is then setting up the policies and programs and things that this commission can recommend being set up or move forward with.
As I hear that, it sounds like that's kind of an ongoing activity of the commission. That on a essentially continual basis, new things get reported and some things get signed off, and that's a sort of a continuous flow task for us. And it mostly has to do with existing operations of streets and intersections around the city. Whereas some of the other things on the list are definitely more about planning for the future.
Yes.
Is that a
That-
correct
I think that's a
distinction?
good distinction there, and I will say that that ongoing work is generally as those issues come in, it's really the engineering division. We're looking at those.
Right.
And that log is there to provide you information to see if there's trends.
The ongoing
then-
work for us is to just stay aware of the, you know, your status.
Stay aware of
on that
those, and
list.
then, yeah, then what'll happen is if there's kind of, and I'll go back into the, the limited decisions versus the general decisions that are within the code component. The limited decisions are those things that are generally very discrete. Things like, should a stop sign be at this location or a marked crosswalk? And then there's policies and elements to see if it's warranted or not. Engineering division will go through and look at those when those concerns come in. If it's warranted, then we'll issue, or if it's not warranted, there'll be a limited decision issued that states it was warranted or not, the reason why, and then that'll come to this Traffic Safety Commission so that you're aware of those. The more, the general hearings for a general decision or where there's a hearing needed, those are things that involved, say a neighborhood's requesting no parking for their block for a side of the street between intersections, or something that's stop signs strip located throughout an area. I think that's one of the items that have been talked about. That gets into a general decision, not a limited decision that requires that hearing. So it's those kind of things that active issues log kind of feeds some of those elements, unless it's an issue that is a non-discrete location and again, results in a hearing component. And again, engineering division kind of looks at that and gathers information and puts that together based upon whatever the concern is, and there's policies in place and procedures. And there's documents on the website for what those are, but residents' concerns to move those forward.
I could imagine that in terms of the work of our group, some presence of that topic is on our agenda every time. And then depending on how much of that there is, then we potentially also work on some of these other things, kind of a story arcs, this particular the bike ped plan might go for 2 or 3 meetings, and the ADA routes goes for 2 or 3 meetings, as do however much they need from us. But I could kind of see some current operation stuff and some long range planning stuff always being side by side on our agendas.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I think, like I had mentioned, kind of within the engineering staff report, that's where that active issues log generally gets presented, and I'll have that for the next one.
Yeah,
And those are where they're making you aware of things. If there's something that becomes actionable or might become actionable, that's during the engineering, during that portion of the agenda. We'll voice that here's an issue that's come up. We see it as moving forward into a limited decision or a general decision, or there could be questions as you're looking at things. I will say from past experience with those, sometimes those, as the log gets updated before the meeting, sometimes that's when issues come up and we've got the concerns get voiced. And so they'll get on the log, but there's no action that has occurred yet. It'll strictly just go that it's been received.
That's
type of a
fine.
thing.
That
And
makes
that's what'll
sense.
occur, and it'll move forward. So it may take a couple of meetings before it moves forward into the next stages and things. So be aware of that.
So Brett, in your experience, has it been the commission's approach to maybe break into subcommittees or subgroups to tackle some of these? Like item number 1, review the bike ped plan and the ADA route. would that be the whole commission, or is it your experience been that maybe 3 members might take that on as a
In
subgroup?
in my experience, there's not been any subcommissions done. That doesn't mean that there hasn't been in the past. I'm not aware of that. It seems like a reasonable idea to do something like that, to tackle some of those and together some research and bring things back to the commission as a whole. That sounds like a reasonable.
You might recall that that's actually what occurred with the abandoned car
Oh, okay.
proposal was, there were 3 members that presented back and helped move things forward. Given that we don't meet on a weekly basis, like might be warranted by that list.
Point, Michael, I forgot about that. Yeah. There was a
Thank you.
small group that
Yeah,
took that
like I
on.
said, I'm still getting up to speed on what occurred in the past and
Yeah.
over the last few years, so appreciate that.
Go ahead, Jesse.
So you mentioned the fact that we have, first of all, several items that could be possibly lumped together, correct?
Yes.
Which would allow us to pare the list down a bit. I think that's a good idea. So first of all, the whole, as a concept, the summary of that would be preparing to contribute feedback to the master plan, correct?
I would think that would be a reasonable
Okay.
approach, absolutely.
Which implies, as the bottom one says, that we need to have a common understanding of what our priorities will be, which is, I think, what they were going for there, to have a presentation at some point on what, if we want to make traffic calming a priority, what does that mean? What are some of the options? So I think that was the direction that was meant to go in originally.
Yeah,
So
so-
if we could collapse 2 or 3 of those down into kind of a singular item.
I think that would be a good approach there. And that is kind of what I was. When I saw the list and like thinking that, like my first take was to how can they, are there groupings? And as I mentioned, I started to find some there and then group those together and then kind of how they can break those down. Cause just 11 items at one elements, whether you to take all of those. Since like I said, some of them are things that are already being done. And what does that mean as far as how does?
Yeah.
Maybe there's more definition of what the steps are associated with them. There's a potential another approach to those.
And that was gonna be another comment, was that the item of looking at the complaint log and addressing resident concerns. I agree that's not something that's really a thing we decide to do. It's something we do every time. So we can just take that off the list, I think, unnecessary. Some of them, we said they could be combined a bit. But if it, other than, I think the RLR presentation can go away because that's already been done, right? The red light running. I think.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, so that can go.
There's
Let's see. The poster suggestion was tied in with the nuisance vehicle changes,
Oh, so-
because there was a desire to ensure that the public was informed, if this goes forward, of the difference between calls to the not the police, but the calls that are reporting these nuisances that are a genuine thing that they're going to look at, and the ones they're not. So that was the idea behind that one, to come up with an educational campaign there. Basically, whatever's left, I would suggest maybe if you could just put that in a poll and send it to the commission via email, and then we could all vote on our priority suggestions. Like which things we think we would pick your top 5 or something like that.
Well, I'll leave that to the chair to confirm
Okay.
how the process that you want to go, because what I would see if that's a desire of that would be kind of a motion related to that to set the stage up, and I could take an attempt to break up some things or group things based upon some discussion. The other thing you could do is tonight, you could go through and start to discuss among yourselves and come up with some groupings and things, or to have motions to take some off the list or to move some forward in some fashion. That's kind of, I'll leave that to the chair and into the commission to kind of.
Thank you, Brett, for the advice. I think the first easy one is maybe a motion to take a couple of the items off the list. As you mentioned, they're probably already complete.
We can certainly do that, although this isn't exactly like it's an official thing that we need to do motions.
No,
That's
true.
It's not coder or anything we're recommending to city council or anything like that. So I think we can just kind of agree together that something needs to go, yes or no, I don't know.
So I'm in agreement with you on both the process and the specifics. I think, now I've lost it, the complaint log and the red light running can come off the list. With the understanding the complaint log is a standing business of our group. I see a couple things there that I wonder about, because I wasn't in on the previous discussions. Number 4 seems very site specific, and I'm wondering if it gets captured by the current issues log. It's something that would show up there. It's an issue that's been raised at a specific location, and your ongoing reporting to us would probably capture it, maybe.
That's what I would suspect as well. I recall that location having come up previously with a variety of issues, kind of crosswalks and some other connectivity things. That's one of the things that I only update the log and pull some information from the
So
past.
I guess where I'm
Nothing I
going
can
with it is,
present there.
I think it doesn't need to live as a separate item on the list if it in fact does get captured by that other understanding. And then the other one that's similar is at the end of the thing about the complaint log is a specific mention about Villa Road. Although it's not at all specific about what the concern was, but I would hope that whatever that concern was would also have a similar status. That it would live in this complaint log issues tracking world.
And it does.
Yeah, okay. So that doesn't need to
So
live
all
separately on the
references to the specific traffic items here could be removed because they're handled under the complaint log or issues log. By the way, I like calling it issues log a little bit better.
Yeah,
More than just complaints, you know, we're generating some of those too.
So if we're to go down the list of things to collapse under kind of the master plan issue, I would go with 3, 4, 5. 11. Think all
Does
of those.
does number 1 go in your pile there?
You know, I don't know much about the plan myself, so.
Yeah, so as I understand it, there was a bike ped plan created some years ago. And that plan was prior to the last update of the traffic system master plan or traffic system plan update. And that previous bike ped plan had been incorporated into the transportation system plan with some updates. So that's how I would foresee that going forward. However, there's always a possibility that it could be an independent document like it was previously. That there would need to be, something would need to champion that, I guess, going forward, and it could be this commission to then, as a recommendation to council to have something move forward again. There's two scenarios here to think about. One is the kind of the recommendations and kind of going back to the purpose of things, recommendations and policies and things related that could be to the council for a program to that. Maybe that could be a recommendation, could be broken down as simple as a recommendation to council to have a bike plan update. These are not things unnecessary suggestions, things to move forward with. They're just ideas that how that could be. The other is at the time of the transportation system plan update, when that happens, to have information to present into that as the Traffic Safety Commission is involved with that in whatever fashion that turns out. Prior to that system master plan updating, there could be research going on by this commission to bring things forward in that component of things. Kind of review of the current plan. And
I have a question. What's the time frame for this master plan?
typically when the master plan updates, it typically occurs over about the course of about a year, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, just depends on kind of what the full scope of that is decided upon at that time.
What's the schedule for that?
Oh, as far as when that's going to occur, it's not known at this time. That had been previously, it was a couple of years out in a previous 5-year capital improvement program that had been published. It's now being, those are annual updates. The city engineer is currently looking to update that. And when I talked with him before, he's not seeing it in next year's CIP and is uncertain if it would land in the next 5-year CIP. Kind of it's related to balancing budget and resources against the needs of when things are needed there.
So am I hearing we're a couple of years out before this process starts?
We're probably at least 2 years out before the process would start.
Thank you. That kind of puts a new light on things. So in other words, if we have real concerns about bike ped plan or what it is, or I'd like to see it because I'm not sure I've ever seen it. We don't want to just lump it under transportation master plan preparation because that'd be putting it onto the next generation.
I could see an early item of work for this commission to be for us to become better informed and educated about the current status of these various plans so that we know
Amen.
whether we think they need something. And that'll be the bike ped plan, the ADA plan, the traffic calming plan, maybe even the old version of the overall master plan. Just to, bring us up to speed on where all of these things are. So I don't think we can say anything more until we've done that.
That makes too much sense, actually.
Well, I can offer up that all of that information that you're talking about is on the city's website. For all those master plans as they currently exist, I can send you links to where those locations are at, so they kind of help with that.
Well, maybe we could have one or two of them on our agenda each meeting. Where you have done that ahead of the meeting and we've reviewed it and are prepared to say, here's what we think about the current state of things, and it does or doesn't need attention sooner than this at least 2 years out process.
I wonder if it would be helpful, maybe if we had this list, if you could email that to us, maybe we went back and reviewed the transportation safety, the TSP as it exists now. Maybe that, to your point, would help get us up to speed with what these issues are and where they land in the plan that's current. And then maybe we can come back and have a discussion about what do we want to tackle next, whether we bundle 3, 4, 5, and 11 and start focusing on those. I think we agree there's a few of these are going to roll off the list because they're done, but does that, I think I'm hearing that we're probably need to get up to speed on the TSP overall, maybe not the cost estimates in the back, and it's probably in the appendix in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just the general flavor of the contents of the plan itself, where it talks about each of these components and just get our eyes on them. I know I took a look at them. It's been a year or more, but I think it helped me. I know that.
Yeah, if that's something that you'd like to do before moving forward on the, any farther with this, then that's something that I can definitely get sent to you, kind of where those locations at, and yeah, you can send that, the link to the transportation system plan, probably start with that one and within that is the bike plan is within that piece of it, so I can send you the documents related, or the links to where that information lives.
It could be a parallel plan. I mean, both bringing up to date and also considering items on this list and prioritization.
It feels like we have a couple years to work this out from what you're saying.
Yeah, that's what I anticipate. That's my best guess right now. With the information I have, things can always change, so it may be sooner than that if something changes, but that's kind of a best guess.
Oh, however, we might find that something is inadequate enough or could be improved enough that we'd like to make some recommendations to city council. Yeah, just like we did the abandoned car thing.
Yep. And I will say that sometimes a way that I can be thinking of that is you could make suggestions or recommendations then, and maybe there's not action that happens right away, but that recommendation is there when the transportation system plan gets updated. Documents or information like that would get pulled together to help feed into scoping of that plan and elements as I would expect.
So can I check in on, I feel consensus blooming. I think there's some agreement in dropping a couple things off the list. As we discussed, there's some agreement in kind of rolling together the things that are long-range planning and start working our way through them. It seems like the overall master plan is the place to start. And then the understanding that the specific operational concerns get picked up as a matter of ongoing routine business, standing agenda business of this commission. And I think that'll capture almost everything up there, but there's a few oddball things that I don't think have been captured by any of our discussions so far. Numbers 8 and 9 both seem to have to do with outreach and social media and PR campaigns. And I'm wondering, is that something this commission has discussed and maybe is done with, or is that ongoing, or?
I would see the education component of this as something that could be ongoing. There's
Okay.
things that can be done in that regard, and that's one thing I don't recall much being done in the past by this commission in that regard, but it's definitely one of the things that are listed in the purpose there.
Right, it just, the way those are specifically worded, they sound like, you know, Sarah was going to have a specific person do a specific thing. It might have already occurred.
Yeah, and I'm not aware, that's one of the things I'll be looking on to
Okay.
continue going through the information, but my expectation is that has not occurred on either of those, especially if the poster element, as was mentioned previously, is related to the nuisance vehicle white paper.
Which is
component, and
actually a
and the
thing
code
that's,
changes like
it's
that.
done here, but not finished in the city.
Correct,
Yeah,
yeah.
so maybe, that's why I was thinking
So-
maybe it's off our list.
Yeah, and what I would see is that would it be, and that would be something as that, when that moves forward, I would definitely expect that there would be some public outreach related to that. That's the
And then the last one that's a puzzle to me is number 2. And I certainly have no objection to it. It seems a worthy thing for a city government to care about. But I don't know if I consider that to be a traffic safety thing as much as a different kind of public safety. Is that really ours to worry about? What do other people think?
I'd like to jump in, and I've been here, this is the start of my second year, but I would say, I'm not gonna call it a frustration, but I'd call it a wondering as far as the work that we've accomplished as a commission. It seems to have been responsive to specific items that have come up. And we've done good work to address that, but we haven't, because of meeting cadence, because of other factors, we haven't been able to actually put a program together, have deep conversation, break into subcommittees and take on any of this work. So the conversation I'm hearing, Rick, you're kind of leading that way with, well, why don't we kind of go back foundationally to understand what does that TSP, that master plan look like in its old format? Really get an understanding of what the commission could be doing, what our role might be. And that way we know that when these things come up, whether they're minor, whether major, whether they fit into a community concern, then we know there's a pathway that we might have to take it. I think that's, for me, that movement of, let's not look at the details of the list, but instead let's recognize that we could organize the work a little bit better and respond to the things that come up, is a good move for us.
Thank you, Brad. I agree, but I did hear a question from Rick. I guess maybe are you aware of maybe the genesis, anybody aware of the genesis of item number 2? Did somebody
No,
present
and
that?
that is exactly the question I was just about to ask before you just did. It's like, what, was this Sarah's list before
This-
she left?
This was Sarah's list that she'd put together, but I believe it also was in the meeting minutes, or is showing up as an item within the, it looks like there was some kind of sort of a meeting where there was a discussion and a list of topics were thrown out, discussed in general, and this ended up on that list. Okay. As I understand it. So this is kind of the next. So I think the July meeting minutes, I believe, had that in. Yeah, under commissioner comments, so item 8.
But it just shows up as a list that looks like this.
Yeah, it's a
It
list like
doesn't really
this.
say how things got on the list. I was wondering if, could maybe our police representative talk about high crime areas? Is that a thing you need help from us on? I mean, do we have a role in that? Maybe a better way to ask it?
First off, I'm not sure, I'd be curious to know where that came from. I mean, high crime, quote unquote, is, I mean, that's a varying perspective. I've worked in larger cities that I think actually have high crime areas, and that's why I work in Newburgh now, because I don't consider there a lot of high crime areas. And so, but that's about perspective, right? So I'd like to know, who offered that, and, maybe there's something I'm missing, but as far as the Traffic Safety Commission, I can't independently think of any situation in Newburgh that would be solved by offering more lighting for something that we're currently experiencing in the police department. For just a quick off the top of my head answer.
Thank you.
I also just want to add, I do see the relevance because foot traffic, I think, does encompass our sphere here. But just as a pedestrian, I run in the dark, and adding streetlights is just light pollution. I mean, I'm responsible for my own reflection and headlamp and everything. And this, to me, it doesn't seem relevant either.
Okay.
Yeah.
I might have a little bit of information. We receive a lot of phone calls and maintenance about streetlights and things like that. One of the areas that have been brought up to concern is the downtown parking lot and alleys at night, trying to walk around, especially during the winter months, getting to some of the shops. People have felt unsafe walking down the alleys or in those darker areas to get to their vehicles. I don't know if there's been any crime or increase in crime or anything like that, but that is the complaints we have received. And George Fox, engineering students, is doing a study right now and trying to see how we could redesign that parking lot, maybe add some more lighting and do some things there.
Thank you, Preston. That's great. That makes sense.
To add one item there, I think the street lighting, again, where this one came from, I'm not certain for that piece of it, but street lighting, definitely, like Chris mentioned, for the maintenance, getting concerns and complaints driven is kind of when we look at some of the issues that have occurred at crosswalks and things like that, where somebody's had a near miss or something that happens, oftentimes there is inadequate lighting or maybe not as much lighting as what might, additional lighting could improve the situation and things. So that aspect of it could enter into it. It's more of a peripheral, I think, of the commission than as a core.
Yeah, well, I could
standard
see a
piece of thing.
distinction between street lighting specifically to address a traffic safety concern. If, you know, a pedestrian crossing location is especially dark and lighting is the remedy, that's our business. Even if it's just to, you know, sign off on you doing what's appropriate at the staff level. But if it's street lighting as the prevention of other types of crime, I just think it's a thing we could let other people handle and keep our list that much more manageable. So,
I
To-
agree with that.
I kind of agree. We don't really need a motion, but Brett probably wants to know, do you feel like you have enough direction or would you like something more
It
tangible?
feels like you think you mentioned about feeling like coming to consensus, and I'm in
Yeah.
agreement with that. I think what I'd like to see is maybe it's broken out of a list of the items from the group, a list of the items of the things to come off the list. And kind of then we can take that and come to a consensus, you know, I think an informal vote or elements on that would work for that. And then what things you might want to be grouped. Or maybe it's just wait to group those until I've sent you the link to the transportation system plan as it exists and move forward there. And we would leave those other items then on there for the next meeting.
Go ahead, Jess.
Suggestion. We take it line by line and we just really quickly voice vote, keep, drop, or merge into another category and then get through the list.
Can I get a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, let's go through the list. So item number 1, review bike ped plan and ADA route and consider prioritizing access routes. We want to merge that or? keep it-
Merge under preparation of transportation master plan input
Okay, I hear. a
or
vote.
contribution for master plan.
Merge.
Merging sounds great.
Merge.
So go ahead nodding. Okay.
Merging.
We have agreement there. And maybe I'll just jump over number 2 for now and go to number 3. I think Jess, your idea earlier was to merge 3, 4, and 5. Thank you. Your suggestion earlier was to merge 3, 4, and 5?
Yes.
I wasn't sure why number 4 got wrapped up in that.
So
It's part of traffic calming mechanisms.
Oh, okay. the
Perhaps
topic
that's
of
an
elevated
idea.
crosswalks more generally than that one specific location.
So on item 4, I have a specific request that Brett review if that is already captured under the issues list.
I suspect that it is, but I would also agree that the discussion on kind of the elevated crosswalks might apply more, that item is very specific location. That might apply more generally and fall with the traffic calming guideline component of things.
And that looks like number 5 accomplishes that.
That's fine. Then let's drop 4 and merge 3 and 5.
Yes.
Yes.
Along with number 1.
Right, yes.
Okay, so 1, 1, 3, 5, and you also mentioned 11 earlier.
Yes. Do we
Okay.
want to merge 11 as well?
Yes.
Okay, so 1, 3, 5, and 11. Can I get a motion, Jesse, to merge items 1, 3, 5, and 11?
Make a motion that we merge items 1, 3, 5, and 11.
Okay, can I get a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye. Agreement on those. Okay, item number 2, adding streetlights to high crime areas to make safer. I think we agree we might want to wordsmith that item maybe to give consideration to downtown street lighting subject to outcome of a George Fox engineering study, or
I would say it might be nebulous enough that we could just drop it from the list.
I agree.
okay, maybe I misunderstood. Preston, the George Fox folks are going to take care of that study or those recommendations?
Yeah, they're actually providing some designs and we'll present them to a board of employees. And we'll review them and see the feasibility and see if there's any of them we can implement.
I misunderstood. Thank you. Good catch. Okay, so I hear a motion to strike number 2 from the list. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 I think the ayes have that one. So item 3 is merged. Item 4, do I hear a motion to strike number 4 from the list?
I move.
Second.
Okay, all in favor to strike number 4 from the list?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. Hearing none, so that one passed. So 1, 3, and 5 are merged. Item number 6, Traffic Safety Commission could refresh the worst intersection list previously created by the Traffic Safety Commission. This feels like a standalone task.
I think it's like the one thing on the list that can just live as its own thing. And should just stay there.
I struggled with this. This was subjective, based upon asked for data and we didn't see a lot of data. We just got some kind of just concerns among the commission.
There's not data. I made a misunderstanding.
Yep, no worries.
Assumption. Okay.
No, there was an ongoing list of what I think the commission members saw as what were areas of concern around the city.
Oh,
Sure.
okay.
Yeah, I agree. I remember that was something there and we always thought it would be important. I thought it was always important to have more information from the police department about where are the problem areas they're seeing and get that input into this worst intersection.
Yeah, so I would say we get enough information from,
From your experience, is there data on that? If your system's not eating the data that you could provide in terms of worst.
What specific issue is that
Well,
data about? Is it about
guess
crashes or?
Worst intersection, just.
Oh.
Yeah, where our problems occur.
Yeah.
Yes, we can certainly do a stat roundup and find out what the most dangerous or which intersections we respond to for the most crashes, if that's what you're asking for.
And
Yeah.
pedestrian problems and those kind of.
Yes.
I think that's the refresh that list needs.
Okay.
So,
great.
I mean, do we need to define maybe what the criteria of how you rank? What's worst? I mean, is it strictly vehicle accidents? Is it pedestrian
I don't know if we need a worse list if we get input from the police saying, hey, here's data that suggests a conversation that we would have, or here's a community member bringing something to our attention via the other complaint list. I think this could be just a task that we say that list served its purpose and we don't need necessarily move forward with it.
But this would just be captured in the standing reports from the police.
Correct.
So I have a suggestion on that. I guess there was a list that was created. I believe I have seen it or can locate that. So what I'm thinking is that that list is forwarded to the police department. And we give you those intersections that, and I believe that you're correct that when that started, I believe when I was last, there was discussions about doing something like that when I was last involved. And my guess is it was probably the commissioners voicing based on your driving experiences and that, what are your concerns, intersections basically, and that created this worst case. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the worst. It's just based on the elements of what data that you had. And if there's a follow-up on that with some current data to indicate are those issues, are those intersections of concern, something that's documented by crash data or whatever information is available, then you have that information to utilize.
Yeah, men, your good idea to suggest that we don't throw that all on the officer, but have him get the data for us, and then perhaps we'll form a subcommittee to study the list versus the data and see if there's some adjustments. I would be shocked if there weren't some adjustments in terms of prioritizations of intersections based upon receipt of current data.
Yeah, so I guess what I was thinking of is we would, and then tell me, giving you the list of the intersections versus, I don't think you're looking to do all intersections within the city. I think you'd like that.
Well, the
broken
first
down.
when I was first assigned to join this group, there was an intersection, worst intersection list that had already been compiled, and I wasn't sure where that ever came from. But if I were to compile one on my own, it would be completely from data from calls for service that I would mine from, which are usually crashes. So, but there might be other perspectives about what makes an intersection dangerous, whether that you be a dog walker or a jogger or someone else that might not necessarily include a crash that I might not be thinking of from my police perspective, but I can give you crash data from intersection.
Is there a process in place to deal with, or how, when those are recognized, what happens?
Well, that's a good question. If we identify problem traffic areas from the police department perspective, we would focus efforts and traffic officers and make awareness within the police department to focus enforcement action at those particular intersections. But that doesn't, it's like a hotspot that kind of, they rotate through the city. You'll focus on one area for a little bit of time, and then it'll cool down for a little bit, and then another fire will pop up somewhere else, and you kind of focus around. That doesn't address the engineering portion of it, but that,
Doesn't look at the root cause or what, what is going on?
correct,
Why is this an issue? Yeah.
correct.
So there isn't a process in place to do that.
Well, I don't know the answer to that. I don't.
Go ahead, Jess.
My main concern is what would we do with the list? Is there anything actionable that this commission has to do with any list of that sort? If there isn't, then why bother?
Brett, does the list, I mean, do you provide that to the consultant that's going to work on the TSP at some point and ask them to look at the geometry or the
That's
certain
what my-
characteristics of the intersections?
That's my expectation would be is if that list, whatever it wants to be titled, if it gets updated in elements, whatever that of concerns or wherever it is, of what that is, to whatever information and data has been gathered would go to a consultant with the future transportation system to plan update to look at those intersections and bring that in to do that now.
So that
More
might be the
detailed
one
analysis
actionable
with
item
one
that could come
way.
out of it.
There may be a possibility of a solution, though, without having to wait for the study that the commission could look at. Or
That's one way that another use of that list could be that there's, if identified a hotspot or an area of concern there, and it can make a recommendation for a study of that intersection independent of the transportation system. And that's something that the commission could make a recommendation to, and it would be a matter of getting determination from, dedicating staff resources to actually do that or to hire a consultant or whatever that might look like.
So it feels like at this point, I think the ask is for you to pull a copy of that list, maybe share it with all of us and then share it with Sergeant Hagan. And then I guess maybe that's when and then after maybe the next meeting, we can have a discussion. Should we take action or should we elect to continue modifying the list, or are we comfortable seeing it and calling it good?
I move that we drop this item from the list.
Second.
Okay, let's take a vote.
How about some discussion?
Okay, discussion, thank you.
I think, especially because I don't hear that the engineering staff is doing this, things don't operate in this local government the same as in the other local governments where I worked before I retired. So I'm trying to tread carefully because I don't want to play the card, well, this is how I used to do it, but I'm afraid I kind of have to. I worked as a county traffic engineer for my whole career in 2 different agencies. And basically my job was to review all the crash reports and look for those patterns and figure out whether there was engineering solutions that were needed. And I had the resources to do it, which I don't know anything about the city of Newburgh's resources. Neither did I have a traffic safety commission to report to. I just did it. It was my job and I did it. So in the absence of hearing the exact parallel of what I'm used to in my background, I see a potential for this commission to maybe perform some of that function. That at least if we're made aware of the data and shown where the spots are, you know, some of us could go look at a particular intersection and say, hey, have you thought about this? This might be an easy, low cost improvement that the city could pull off within its resources. We could maybe hear from the public if they saw a particular intersection on the agenda and they could share with us their knowledge because they drive it every day and I don't happen to. I'm not comfortable with dropping it from the list, I guess is my conclusion. So I would not vote in favor of the motion. And that's just me.
I would think that it could be redefined or something, but the idea is still, these are problem intersections. Is it something we can help support engineering staff with the council or whatever else to help resolve some of these things without having to wait for a 5-year transportation study?
If I heard that the data like this resulted in stuff being added to the issues log without it coming from any other direction, that would meet my needs. And I would not have a need for this to live separately, but I don't feel like I'm hearing that.
Can I shed some light to a little bit is most of the accidents is talking with some of the police do happen on the state highway 99, College and all that. All the traffic signals in Newburgh, we don't own or maintain.
Okay, sure.
So the intersections you're gonna be talking about are more in the residential areas, okay? The police are usually pretty good. If there's something wonky out there, they're having issues with it, they'll bring it to maintenance. If maintenance can't solve it, we team together with engineering. Some of the issues we know that are out there, there's Springbrook that have some issues. There's also Villa Road, but those are both ODOT intersections. So it's gonna take a more of a working around to solve that and a larger part of ODOT to play involved. And we can't really push ODOT, correct me if I'm wrong, Brett, to fix it.
I understand that, but
You're correct.
those intersections which are fully the city, would those result in showing up under this thing we're calling the issues log? If you need to reach out to engineering, would your issues log process capture it and it would show up in that report? And
Based on how the action log had been done previously that I'm aware of, and I believe it's still, I'm not aware of any change with that. What shows up in the action logs are things that come in from the residents.
Okay.
So if it originated with a resident, then it's gonna end up getting there, whether that ends up coming to us from either PD or maintenance to the engineering. It's gonna, if it originates with the resident, it's gonna end up in that action log. There, I should say the active issues log.
yeah,
It results in an action for me typically to
Yeah.
liaison, the one in my position to kind of do something with that, so.
Yes, Jesse.
I completely appreciate what you said earlier, and I understand where you're coming from. And I would be in agreement if over the past year that I have served on this committee, I had seen anything come out of that list. And maybe you would do better with your past experience. But like, the issues of the jurisdiction on the roads, just the fact that every time that comes around, so we look at this list and we go, oh, yes, those are bad intersections. Can we do anything about this? No, we can't. So I just kind of wonder, is there any point in it staying on there? So that's why I thought it might be worth time to drop it. But if you really feel strongly about keeping it on, then
I guess I would like to see the data, even if it just showed up on a consent agenda. How about that?
Is the list available, Brett?
Yeah, what I was gonna say is I think kind of what I'm hearing is kind of this ask for the data information. It kind of starts with the it kind of things to review is the transportation.
feels like
system.
we have,
I need to
you
look
know-
at that. If we can gather data based upon as a starting point, the worst intersection list that had been, has been called and been created. And if I recall correctly, and having looked at a couple of hotspot maps that have been done in the past, a lot of those concerns, the intersections involve ODOT right away on the highways, definitely are going to be in there. So that's something that can provide that information. I don't know that it would be necessarily a consent item or that it would be just information, it's data and information that the commission has to look at to kind of formulate a kind of a next steps, either with these tasks that are decided to move forward with, or some new one that might come up. That's there.
Yeah, I'm kind of just thinking out loud here. I feel like maybe we could have a vote to remove it from the list, but then we could also agree that if you could share that with us, maybe via email, we could take a look at it for our personal interests. And if there's something that we feel strongly about, we could bring it back and have discussion about.
Perfect.
How's that?
I go for that.
Okay. I mean, like you said, there's a reason why we haven't been revisiting the list, and people before us may have came to a similar conclusion, but we have you're new and new to the community, so it's a good learning experience, opportunity for us.
I need to
I
know
would
what
be curious.
intersections to stay away from.
There you go. There you go. So I heard a motion a while back. We need to act on that. So I heard a motion from Jesse and I had a second from, Brett, to remove item number 6 from the list. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And then I'll just add a motion that just an ask of staff to maybe share that with us via email, the list as it exists now.
The list as it exists now.
Yeah.
After you've taken off the deletion of items.
No, I'm sorry, number 6, the worst intersection list.
The list,
Share
the
that.
worst intersection.
Yeah, just to
Yes.
maybe help
As an
some of
ask,
us get to
yes.
speed.
Yes.
And then I guess the other part of that ask is, do we still need staff to pull crash data, or are we just comfortable looking at the list at this time and save them their effort?
I would like to see the data.
Okay,
I would like to see the data.
okay. Do I need to make a motion for that, Brett?
That can be an ask. We can work with that.
Thank you. Okay, so back to the future tasks list. Item number 7, I think we agree with item number 7 to remove it from the list. It'll be just part of the ongoing agenda when we get together each time. So a motion to remove number 7 from the list. And that,
So moved.
can I get a
Second.
second? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, so remove that from the list. Item number 8, Sarah Wilson proposes a TSC awareness poster created by Emily to share with the public as a response to the types of calls and outcomes that don't qualify as official issues, but still create a problem. I think 8 and 9, we agreed, or go ahead, Jesse.
I would propose that we table this one pending the eventual finalization of the nuisance rules, at which time we can revisit the issue of public awareness campaigns.
Should we combine number 9 with it on the table?
What does number 9 even mean?
I don't know.
I'd be okay with dropping 9 person.
Okay, so table 8 and drop 9. I second.
Well, let me take a stab at what I think 9. I think guessing that Sarah was attempting to broaden, making generic, if you would, that the role of this commission would be to have a public face. And better communicate that people are welcome to come and talk to us. You know, there is an input form. Actually on the website. I'll tell you guys the truth, a year ago, I put something in off that. Never heard anything back. It was just a test case. Did what I thought. I didn't hear anything from engineering or this commission. This is before I was on the commission. So I'm not saying that people don't come sometimes, but we don't want to be in a closet. So I think that was her attempt to do that. So I'm just trying to explain what I think that is.
Go ahead, Jesse.
Is there a social media POC with the city who handles most of that?
Yes, there is.
Is that individual aware of the Traffic Safety Commission?
They are aware of it. What I think, and what going with, and Michael Rossman, thank you for sharing what you were thinking on that piece of it, because that does fit then, because I was uncertain on this piece of it, and I had not had a chance to talk with Sarah kind of what on these lists prior to things. That makes sense to be able to kind of, and kind of goes into the kind of the educational component potentially of the Traffic Safety Commission is coming up with, you'd like something broadcast on social media, you know, do you want, we could have, I mean, because to my knowledge, we have not advertised that for when these meetings occur. That's an element that could be done potentially. There may be, maybe that one gets structured more into a public outreach component or awareness component there of some things that could be more or less a program that could be created. Kind of related to that, and it might start small and grow into something. One.
So be,
I guess I might make a suggestion and kind of related to this with some of the discussion on this one in particular. Maybe it grows into something. If we kind of were deleting some off the list and we're going to merge some in that, and what I'm sensing is I'll regenerate back a list that has that in there. Maybe some of these, like the number 9, if it were to stay on there, it's kind of not on as like. Maybe it's a matter of coming back with, once these are kind of coordinated, maybe there's some definition of some of these as they move forward with it. And it starts out as this is kept as social media presence.
Well, we might actually come up with some actual action items too. So is not a task, it's a goal.
Yeah.
A little bit more. Okay, the task would be Brett's going to create a new newspaper. You know, so anyway, I just want to point that I think part of, I'm just gonna get part of Jesse's and everyone's concern with that is it doesn't read like a task. Okay, it's not a task.
Yeah, I would say also that a number of these kind of are listed as tasks as kind of the verbiage utilized, but some of these could be more like programs or potential things as well like that. These are items and elements there. This is the kind of the way the discussion started. It seems to be along that lines, but I view some things are, some of these are more of a programmatic elements of.
Jesse.
Back to my question as to who the person is who runs the social media. I think the reason I asked that is because it's important we know what our capabilities are with regards to any effort we might make in that area.
So
are we confined to having to work through that person, or are we able to like?
For social media outlets and public outreach elements, it's through she acts as a community engagement coordinator.
Is there any way we could communicate with her and find out what maybe we could do?
I can make a ask of what are the outlets that she has access to and get some recommendations from her to kind of what the commission might voice back to her that they'd like to see.
Maybe you could invite her to one of our meetings and we could meet her and she could educate us what she does and we could educate her what we do.
I can make an invitation.
Understood.
We'll see where
Absolutely
it
fine,
goes from
yeah.
there. She would need to get authorization as well for that, but that
Yeah.
doesn't.
Right. But I could picture this ultimately reading something like a program to work together with city staff on overall outreach efforts for the commission. You know, something a little more general, but it does seem to fit within our commission purpose.
Agreed. So let's go back and revisit number 8. I heard a motion to suspend it. Is that right? Jesse, you want to restate that motion one more time?
8, I would propose that we table until the nuisance rules are finalized and we know exactly what we need to do with regards to public education.
I'd second that.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Okay, item number 9. I think we agree, suggestion of staff maybe to rephrase that, maybe revisit that one at a later date. I think we realize we could benefit maybe from sharing some of what we do with the city's POC and something to explore and find out how that process works maybe going forward. Number 10, I think I maybe heard a suggestion earlier to end that one.
Drop it.
Okay, can I get a motion on number 10?
We drop it.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor to drop number 10, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none. So item number 11 was,
I think we already did.
I think we did earlier. We wanted to meld that one with 3, 5 and number 1. So sorry, Mike. I think we're at the bottom of the list. All right. There's no page 2, right, Brett?
There is not a page 2.
Okay, great.
So what just to kind of revisit this, what I've got is keep number 8, but they're going to table that until the nuisance vehicle thing moves forward, the white paper associated with that, and those code changes move forward. And number 9 is a revisit, basically what that is about, kind of so keeping it. The deletions are 2, 4, 6, 7, and 10. And then merging related to the transportation system plan update in the future is 1, 3, 5, and 11. And then as action items out of this, I'll be sending the TSP Transportation System Plan links to the Traffic Safety Commission and also locating and sending out that worst intersection list that was previously created by the commission and making a request to the PD for crash data at those intersections. And then inviting our communication coordinator to attend a future meeting sometime.
My only augment to that, it's not just crash data, whatever data the police department collects on intersections in terms of calls that they receive.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
noted.
Okay, I think we're ready to move on to the next item under old business, and that's meeting frequency. And Brett, you earlier mentioned that, so I think somewhere in past meeting minutes, there's discussion about possibly changing the frequency, increasing the frequency of our meetings.
There had been, yes, there was. And I'm not familiar with what those discussions were, the originator of that, just that there was discussion that there had been thought to increase that. I do believe it had been related to again, the expectation that the transportation system plan update was going to happen sooner than what we now know it to be.
I guess one question I would have is, I mean, it's one thing to ask to increase the meeting frequency, but that also requires support from staff.
Correct.
Would staff be able to support that ask?
We would make a way to do so.
Okay. Discussion from the commission?
So, yes, I think the first back to you, Dan, who's got the majority of the legwork, meeting minutes and everything else that goes with it. If the frequency increase were to once a month, which I'm just pulling out of the air, okay, forgive me. Perhaps, could you support that sort of thing? And then it comes up to all of us, how obviously, how often are we willing? But I'll just say before I hand it over to you that, you know, as I, these agendas and for us to, with so many new people and the rest of us needing to dust off cobwebs, if we meet at the current rate, it'll feel like we're just continually dusting off cobwebs.
So
I'm done. Thank you.
Okay.
So one thing
Brett?
to just, I guess I should say, I do recall that the discussion was, that there was discussion going that it would be an every other month meeting, not an every month meeting is what was been discussed.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, and this is for consideration, just to make certain you're aware, if we're going along and we're meeting quarterly and there's a decision or a need to meet more frequently than that, that can be made at that time for a month, you know, a month out type of a thing, or 2 months out. We have for the public meeting noticing, there's some requirements on that, but it's, if you know a month in advance, that's more than enough time to know that we're making it, adding an additional meeting. There is a little coordination to make certain the room is available and staff is available and those kind of things that that meeting has had, but that's something else to consider.
Well, we just took a list of 11, whittled it down to 4 or 5. I guess I would want to hear from the commission. Do you think we need to go to an every other month format? I know it gets rusty every 3 months. Open the table. Go ahead, Rick.
So I have a couple concerns. One is, for me personally, I just started with a musical group that has its rehearsal on Monday night every single week. And I had to miss the very first rehearsal to be here tonight, because when I applied for the committee, I didn't know that these meetings were on Mondays. And I let the city recorder know. It'd be nice to provide that information at the application process. So they've done so. I can occasionally miss my rehearsals, but I don't want to miss it more often than I have already committed to. The other is, there's a couple significant things that didn't happen tonight, and I just don't have a sense of how much input they will be. And that was the reports from both police and engineering. Their kind of standing reports were both not available this time. I feel like until I have a sense of the real full plate, I don't have a good idea of how often we need to meet to get all the work done. And I guess that would lead toward, I'd rather stay on the quarterly schedule until we know more about our need to meet more often.
Anybody else?
I agree with Rick with the idea that if we start to really move on some of these issues, we have the ability to call more meetings or additional meetings.
Anybody else want to weigh in? Okay. Anybody want to make a motion to keep our meeting frequency as is for now?
I don't think we need a motion to
Or-
make a change.
Yeah, the motion would
All
be
right.
if you're going to make a change.
Okay, so I'm not hearing anybody wanting to make a motion.
I have a question. There was a discussion or mention about changing the time from 7 to 6. I would just, I would be in favor of making the meetings at 6.
No, that's a motion that could be made if that was so decided.
We'll get to that one next. Okay, so I guess you're right. I can't make a motion. Nothing's changing. And so we'll table meeting frequency under B. So yes, Roger, thanks for bringing that one up. So next discussion would be, do we want to move these up to 6 o'clock in the evening? Is that what I hear, Roger?
Yes, I would make that motion that we start the meetings at 6.
Discussion? Does that work for people's schedules?
I'd be in support of it.
Okay. Brett and city staff, does that work for you?
Again, we will make accommodations.
Okay.
So I'm certain that for as leaving and those that do not work in the area or do not live in the area but work in Newburgh would appreciate we ending earlier than that.
Okay.
Than we currently do. So I'm sure that can be accommodated.
All right, so let's, I guess, kind of get a formal motion to change the meeting time from 7 o'clock to 6 PM in the evening.
Roger,
Yeah, do we get a
I
second?
will second Roger's motion.
All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, so our next meeting on April 8th will be at 6 PM. And they'll be at 6 PM going forward this year. Oops. Okay, on to new business. Traffic Safety Commission involvement with future traffic system plan updates. I think we've kind of,
It feels like you covered this within, under the task items there. So once we move that forward there, I think if
okay,
you're in agreement with that, we can.
okay,
that
let's
one
move
to the
forward.
Future. Basically, this
to-
will move forward to an old business item and a future agenda is what will happen.
Okay, great. On to commissioner comments. Mike, anything for the good of the order? All right, any updates on the football game? You've been checking it all? No? All right, go ahead, Mike.
So when there was a while back, there was a concern that came to the commission about the intersection of College Street and 99. About, I guess, if you're walking in the crosswalk, south, when the light turns green, there's a dedicated left turn signal. So did ask about that and well, that's an ODOT thing. I went to a meeting where ODOT was at, brought it up. Didn't go very far. And so I don't know what we do from a city standpoint other than I guess whenever we can, we just need to talk to them about it. And maybe the squeaky wheel gets the grease, so to speak, you know? But it doesn't seem like it's gonna go very far right at the moment.
I'll say that that intersection has come up when I was last on here before and had been involved in discussions with various concerns. There's been crashes or have occurred there and pulled data and information, and that's all been in the past been presented to ODOT and has continually been done so, and they provided explanations for either not doing something or other options or concerns. Potentially, the thing is to just periodically, there is kind of an ask ODOT scenario to go through and keep
Brett.
voicing where concerns are and things like that. When concerns come in, and they have in the past, that's where I've got involved with it before. In the active issues log, and what usually happens is a concern comes in as a traffic issue concern report or some other communication that gets to us, then it's an ask ODOT scenario that's done, and that's what you'll see in the log when those occur. And then what the steps have been taken, and if there's a response, and ODOT does respond to their Ask ODOT website with information. When that response comes in, it'll be summarized within the action log if those come forward there, continuing that piece. But it is ODOT jurisdiction. They're the ones that control those the intersections for the highways through the city.
I'm not familiar with the signage at the intersection. Is there at least signage to warn motorists they have to yield to peds? Or is there anything more simpler that can be, just by adding signage to help?
I believe that that's kind of been presented, or at least ODOT had voiced some of their items that they had looked at signage, and there can be signage overload that then elements as well. So it seems like they had it feels like they had responded back that they'd looked at that, and that might be another part of an ask and continue to look at potentially.
Is that it, Mike? Okay, thank you. Well, I think we're through the agenda. I think the last item here is just reference information. I don't know if you were going to share that a slide. I think those are links. Is that right?
I guess that's a question I have. Those are agenda or links to items that have been included with past agendas, and that's a question that I have is that useful for the Traffic Safety Commission for those to be included or not within this element? Those are links to the Traffic Safety Commission and the Newburgh Dundee Phase 2 of the bypass is what's on that agenda.
As a new member, I found it very helpful. I don't know if it would need to be there every time. But
Yeah, so
might be new member orientation or.
yeah, so one of the things that I was thinking is pulling, because the one link is to the Traffic Safety Commission. That's this commission's website on the city's website. That's actually seems reasonable there, for that piece of it. The other information is there's links on the city's website to some of these others, and maybe there's some updates we make to the Traffic Safety Commission website that includes elements. And that's something we're always open, I would always be open to if you look at that and you have thoughts of something you'd like to see added there to make suggestions, and we can see what we can do about incorporating that and working with the policies that we have, so.
I do have one general ask. That first document you shared with us that outlined our purpose, I believe it was.
So that document and with that piece of it in, I had forwarded you all a link to a SharePoint site. That's an excerpt from the Newburgh Municipal Code. I'll probably, in the link, when I send you the email with the link to transportation system plan, I'm probably going to overload you with links of various things within the city website. And that'll be one of them to the Newburgh Municipal Code. That's where that's from.
Okay.
And that SharePoint so has an excerpt from that includes the full document of all of the Traffic Safety Commission, as what's in the code, it talks about the whole process from membership all the way through.
Okay, so that was
all the
part of
others.
what
That'd
you,
be something, that would be something to become familiar with as members of the commission, yes.
okay, thank you.
I found that very helpful. Thank you. Again, I've been on the commission in the past without any reference information about what we were supposed to be doing and
Okay.
policies and procedures. So I found that very helpful.
I had a question for you, Counselor McBride. With the ODOT meetings, is that something that we could continue to, like, one of us go to and represent and be a positive squeaky wheel for our community? It seems like a lot of these intersections on 99 are continued, issues. Do you have any advice or feedback on that?
I think that would be a great idea. I don't know if anybody's really done that on a consistent basis. So I think that that's a good idea. I just think that the more that it's brought up on a consistent basis, it's sooner or later, something's got to be done about it. I mean, there was the question, well, the cost of the arm that comes out where all the lights are hanging and, well, okay, maybe we find there's machine shops here in Newburgh that could probably step up and say, we'll do it at cost or maybe just a little above cost. But see, ODOT, they have very, very specific dimensions and all that kind of stuff that they engineered. So that idea kind of got shot down too. But I think your idea is really good. If we had somebody that was willing to go to some ODOT meetings and just bring it up, it's not bad.
Yeah, if we could get some information on when those meetings are held, if there's some availability, maybe so it doesn't fall on any one person, but I'd be happy to attend some of those meetings and just continue to put some of those issues forward and also bring back some information to this commission also.
Well, I'll try and find, I just happened to go to a meeting that they were having here in town and so I don't know when they have their regular meetings for anything that involves this area, but I can find that out and I can just report it at the next meeting then, next commission meeting.
Thank you.
Before we adjourn, I have a tech question. So my work email, my personal email, I can get those on my phone, but I've not been able to add the Newburgh email to my phone. Is that by design or is that? I mean,
Yeah,
Or
I'm
do I
not
need to talk to
familiar-
your tech
you-
folks?
Probably the IT folks, what you need to talk to on
okay,
that.
Yeah, I was having the same issue.
okay. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Good meeting tonight, everybody.
Question for the chair.
Okay,
So should we open this to the public for comment? To ask?
sure.
I know you did, but we do
Oh,
have a guest.
Any comments that you have? Actually, I guess I should revisit kind of what the rules for the commission is public comments that are for the meeting are to occur prior to the meeting starting, that there's a form to be filled out and that occurs. That'll happen before the meeting gets called to order and then from there we move forward with those comments versus asking during the meeting.
So do we need to adjourn the meeting and think I'm hearing from Michael. Should we let him come ask a question?
Well, that's what I'm stating is in order for having public comment during the meeting, that there needs to be, there's a form to fill out and to be submitted prior to the start of the meeting.
Okay.
This is the policy to go
So we
forward.
need the gentleman to submit a form. Okay.
And you asked, and the gentleman was asked if he wanted to submit a form prior to the meeting started and declined.
Okay. Okay, so can I get a motion?
Dan,
to
Dan,
adjourn?
can I actually jump in and just say thank you to thank you and Rick for being moving forward and being our chair and vice chair. Appreciate that.
You bet. Thank you, Brett.
And then I move that we adjourn.
Okay, in a second.
I'll second.
All right. I think we're, aye. Have a good evening, everybody.
And the next meeting would be April 8th.
6 p.m.
At 6 p.m. Yes.